Here they come.
Welcome to another episode of Here They Come. I'm Paul Ramlow.
And I'm Kate Lockhart.
Kate, starting us off this week, action this past Saturday night at Meadowlands Racetrack. A pair of important stakes for free-for-allers. Let's start off with the Arthur J. Cutler Memorial for free-for-all trotters. This race went to Arch Madness, who moved to the lead past the opening quarter and cruised home to a stakes record 151 victory over his arch rival, Lucky Jim.
Yeah, it was interesting. Brian Sears said that the post really played a big role in his race strategy. He drew inside Lucky Jim and wanted to take the lead and make sure he kept his eye on Lucky Jim and knew where he was at all times. Turns out Lucky Jim, who came first over, never really was a factor in the race, and Arch Madness just kind of rolled on to victory by 4.5 lengths.
Yeah, and watching the race Saturday night, I saw Lucky Jim make his move off the rail. I thought, here comes the engaging, here comes his charge after the leader, just what we wanted, but it never really played into fruition as Lucky Jim just didn't quite fire as much as I'm sure Andy Miller would have liked, and it was just an easy victory for Arch Madness, who trainer Tron Smedshammer said is probably the best he's ever been, which is saying a lot for a horse that's won over $2 million lifetime.
The other big race at the Meadowlands this past Saturday was the Graduate Final, which was won by Shark Gesture. It was a dramatic victory. He fought a fierce battle in the stretch and won by a half length over both Won the West and Lease Again.
Yeah, this definitely was the stretch drive I had been hoping for in the Cutler. I did get to see it in the Graduate. I thought Won the West was a winner as they reached halfway down the stretch, but Shark Gesture really dug in, fought off all challenges, and came up with an impressive victory. I guess this shouldn't surprise us too much. Shark Gesture has done a lot of this over the last couple of years. And as a matter of fact, Kate caught up with his trainer, Larry Remond, to talk about this great older pacer.
How are you today, Larry?
Fine, thank you.
Shark Gesture had a really gutsy win in the Graduate this past weekend, battling in the stretch to win by a half length over Won the West and Liz Again. How did he come out of the race?
He's fine. He had a restful night, and then we sent him out the next morning. Early the next morning, he's got a week of vacation in the field, so he's in good shape.
Now, you've had him since his return to the track after a brief stint in the breeding shed in 2008. Since you've had the horse, what do you feel has been his most impressive performance?
I guess that was a gutsy performance the other night, but when he won the Derby up in Canada, probably was a remarkable performance. He destroyed the field that night up there. He was, at the top of the game, but as far as guts-wise, not many horses could do what he did the other night.
Yeah, it was certainly impressive. Bob Hayden, I saw, said on his blog that Shark Gesture is the best horse in North America, period, which is some high...
He's a fan of his.
Yeah, he is indeed. That's awfully high praise considering some of the horses that have returned to the track.
Right.
I know it's early, but how do you feel he stacks up against his peers?
He's one of the better ones. I think I'm biased, but I think he's the best. But Won the West will be his competition, and for the sake of the business, I hope the New Zealand horse is capable of going with those horses. So it would be good for the industry if there were 2 or 3 horses that were basically the same caliber. Yeah, but I think our horse is probably one of the better.
Now, I noticed Shark Gesture made a lot of starts in 2009 for a free-for-aller. He made 29 starts in all. Do you plan to race him as much this year?
No, but see, last year we were still trying to get him. It wasn't hard to bring back. It just is a matter of getting those miles under. It wasn't like bringing a green horse back. He had to jump in with the top caliber horses, and he kind of raced himself into shape. This year he had a light layoff after his last race in Chicago, and was never really completely let down, and was easier to keep at this level. He's probably the best. The time that we've had him, he's probably in the best shape that he's ever been in.
That's great to hear. Where do you plan to race him next?
His next race will be at Tioga, and I believe it's the Better Delight race.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to it. Best of luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry and Kate, for all that great insight into Shark Gesture. In other news in New Jersey, John Campbell, harness racing's all-time top money-winning driver, appeared on The Grinder, a radio show broadcast by AM 970 in New York City. The Grinder is a weekly business show which features corporate leaders and experts in their field. The show has taken quite a bit of racing action over the past few weeks. Previous guests include Mike Gulata and Scott Fellon of Dio Valente Farms and Anthony Peretti of Peretti Farms.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the New Jersey horsemen are really taking this grassroots effort to heart. It's amazing to see what Galata has come up with as he's spearheaded this campaign. They've written letters to the editor. They're appearing frequently on these radio shows, and I know they're making calls to legislators. So I'm really hopeful that their efforts will pay off and prove to be fruitful. News from the internet this week, Paul. The Hoofbeats website, which can be found at hoofbeatsmagazine.com, got a whole new redesign last week. Included in the redesign are 6 new blogs, which are going to be updated regularly and feature such bloggers as Adam Bowden, who talks about breeding issues, Frank Cotolo talks about handicapping, Carol Hodis of the Standardbred Breeders and Owners Association, New Jersey. There's also Bob Marks and Harness Racing Communications, Ellen Harvey and Ken Weingartner. So if you're out there looking for some new web content, it's a great place to check out. Speaking of hoofbeats, next up is this week's installment of the Hollywood Minute with Bob Hollywood Hayden and Nicole Kraft, brought to you by Hoofbeats Magazine, reporting with horsepower.
Well, Holly, this weekend, Arch Madness, boy, he sure stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, the Cutler fastest mile ever, 151. He drew post 6 inside of Lucky Jim, and that was a big factor. He got the lead after a couple moves and kept Lucky Jim at bay at the three-quarter pole and then just sprinted off. And that 151 mile is pretty serious when you consider that no one's ever done that in May, June, or July. All the 151 miles have come after that, and a lot of them in Lexington, too. So big effort, Arch Madness. Tron Smedsheimer actually told me last night this is the best trotter he's ever had. And as far as Lucky Jim, the way he kicked in coming home I thought was very encouraging. It looked like he was kind of floundering and maybe might even be off the board at the 5/8, but I think he'll be fine heading overseas as he is the likely favorite in the Elite Lop.
I was reading something with Trond, and he was talking about some challenges that Arch Madness had last year. Have you talked to him at all about that?
Yeah, well, I remember when Trond said to me last year early that Arch Madness just didn't have the winter that he thought he would. And when a horse makes $559,000 and you're disappointed, you know the expectations are high. But those high expectations come right from defeating Donato Hanover back-to-back in the Breeders' Crown Lemon Final in 2007 and having a huge 4-year-old here. Now he's back at 6, and I think probably better than ever. And, this 151 trotting list is pretty exclusive. I did a little study here with just 17 members, 16 of them in a race. The Meadowlands now is the leading track with 6 151 trotting miles, and 4 of our 5 fastest miles have come in the Nat Ray, which is our feature for the older horses, as you know. And Lucky Jim last year with that 151 joined Victory Tilly, Mr. Rizzi, and Hell of a Hush. On this list, a couple horses have repeated, Vivid Photo and Tom Ridge. Tom Ridge actually did it in the same day. And look at the incredible dominance of Muscles Yankee on this list. There are 6 3-year-olds who've got a 51 or faster mile. And 5 of those 6 miles are by his sons, Muscle Hill, Tom Ridge, Strong Yankee, and Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, and Tom Ridge repeated. And like I said, I talked to Trond. He ranked his 4 greatest trotters in order for me. Arch Madness, Sandvik, he called the most talented but didn't have the desire that Arch Madness does, Winsong's Legacy, and the mare House at Ruthville. And surprise, surprise, the 2 drivers who have 3 horses on this 51 or better list are named Brian Sears and Ron Pierce. That shouldn't surprise too many people, I wouldn't think.
Well, we certainly look forward to seeing what Arch Madness does next and seeing how Lucky Jim fares over in Sweden.
Yes, if he can bring it home for the first time since Moneymaker did it for us back in 1998, he's certainly the horse to beat.
Absolutely. You have a great week, Holly.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Bob and Nikki. In news over in Europe this past weekend, Lisa America, who's owned and bred by North American Hall of Famer Lou Gaida, sprang a big surprise by winning the Oslo Grand Prix on Sunday afternoon. At 33-1, Lisa America captured that big, prestigious European Grand Circuit race and got herself a bid into the Elite Lop.
Yeah, the race is it's a 1 5/16 mile race, so it's a long race with a purse of $240,000, and the mare won at a rate of 1:55 7. That's a mile rate. She looked great. It was an impressive performance. Unfortunately, Enough Talk, who was also in the race, didn't really ever factor in to the race itself, but Define the World, another North American horse who made the trip over there, did quite well, finishing 3rd.
Yeah, these horses are all part of the 12 that have so far earned a bid in the Elite Lop, which will be held the last Sunday of this month in Sweden.
A big race coming up this weekend, Paul, is the Max C. Hempt Stakes Final, featuring One More Laughed and Fred and Ginger, who both won their eliminations this past weekend. One More Laughed, who's trained by Ray Schnicker, has been impressive so far, certainly had a great 2-year-old season. He won 9 of 12 races and set the world record on a 5/8 mile track for 2-year-old pacers.
One More Laugh certainly has the pedigree to be an outstanding 3-year-old this year, Kate. He was ranked number 3 behind Sports Rider and All Speed Hanover in this year's experimental championship ratings compiled by Stan Bergstein.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Here They Come. I'd like to thank Larry Remen, Bob Hollywood Hayden, Nicole Kraft, and our producer Rich Johnston. I'm Kate Lockhart.
And I'm Paul Ramlow.
Join us next week for another episode of Here They Come.